Hey. One of these things is not like the others. One of these things killed his own brother. Cannibals are not a way of life. That was one of the weirdest intro songs yet. Think about books. Think about reading. What you should read, what you shouldn't read, what's good and what's a waste of money. That's what we're going to talk about. And we got a little pile here that we're going to get through. Let's get right to it. It's like being in the rain, only it's money. You know what? I forgot one of the first. Here, let me get. Book we're going to review today is going to be reviewed on how many things are here? 5 criteria. First, how good is the art? Second, we have the book craft, which you guys know I'm all about. This is how well the book is laid out, how conceptually clean it is, easy to understand key concepts, and fun to read and collect. Finally, it's not finally at all. We have mechanics. Mechanics is really why I buy RPG books. I am always searching for that one little gem mechanic in the entire book that I actually care about, that I can bring into my game, and then the rest, the poor thing winds up on my shelfie. Alright? Then we have, which is what is the best thing about the book, and then we have, which is what is the worst thing about the book. Dragon Magazine Archive Editions. I got 3 of these because especially this particular archive edition I remember from years ago. Cooper is not entertained. I hope you are. But that was a big long dog sigh yawn. Anyway, Scion! Dragon Archive magazines. Dragon Magazine Archives. These are pretty cheap. You can get, I think, really huge collections for a little more money, but just getting like these, which I think are about 3 issues each, pretty cheap. And I had like all these fond memories of Dragon Magazine, especially like I remember them having like tons of maps, and I love this one adventure, the Song of the Fen, and things that came right to our table, and I just remember this being like a golden age, right? So when I got these magazines, it was a lot like watching Thundar the Barbarian again. Which, if you guys have done that, it can be a pretty disappointing experience. Like the old Dungeons and Dragons cartoon, like the nostalgia is absolutely maximal, fantastic, but you realize how far things have come and how your expectations have changed. For that reason, it's fun to go look at the Dragon magazines. It's about the only reason. The art from that era is very homegrown and very not refined. Also, there was very little, if no, digital tools back then. Now, you can say what you will about the appeal and value and, quaintness of analog media versus digital, and Photoshop killed the radio star and all that stuff. But the brutal truth is, for the RPG hobby, digital artwork and the huge explosion of concept and visual development artists out there have done great things for our hobby and visualized our universe in a very awesome, fully realized way. Back in the Dragon Magazine days, it was kind of like the guy that you knew who had a set of microns, who could kind of draw like a skeleton. And then for the book, he had to draw all this other stuff, and it wasn't a little wonky. Back then, it's pretty wonky by today's standards, and that's a bit of a bummer. Okay, next you have the book craft. The book craft is fine back then, but it feels like it was made with an X-Acto knife and Scotch tape, so it's extremely rudimentary compared to how we're used to nowadays boiling text down into blobs and bullets and wraps and things that make a lot of sense and are very easy to read. So book craft, not so good. The mechanics are pretty good. They're mostly 2nd edition or AD&D, which kind of transfer into the giant milky soup of WotC mechanics, which I'll get to with Volos here in a second. But nothing where you're going to go, whoa, because all that stuff, we all know it so well. It's not like, oh my god, I never thought of a DC 13 dex save. That's amazing. Have a nostalgia fest, kick back with some whiskey and kind of chuckle about it. Great. Otherwise, not so good. Okay, best thing about Dragon Magazine, feels really cool to look back to the old school. Worst thing about Dragon Magazine, everything else. Next we have a much reviewed book. A lot of people have paged through this on YouTube. I'm not going to do that because you don't need that in your life. This is Volo's Guide. This is a pretty good book. This is standard fare for WotC, where you get like a thin but impressive looking book for too much money. He is pretty much the leader of the pack in art quality. They don't have any real style per se, because it's just kind of like a literal style. Like, here's a picture of the red cap guy. This is pretty much a picture of him. This is very literal. There's no style to it. But damn, their artists are absolutely fantastic. So you're going to get a lot of treats as far as art goes in here. So I'm going to have to give it top marks on art for Volo's guide, except the cover. I think the cover is pretty crummy because it's very, who am I even looking at, and like, what is this little guy? This guy's not exciting. And again, there's just not a lot of style to it. It's styleless. It's just a literal style. But anyways, great book. Okay, book craft, absolutely impeccable. Again, WotC sets the standard with readability and with simplicity and with emphasis and, you know, stat blocking and the ability to skim and still get really good nuggets. Man, they kill it. They absolutely kill it. Mechanics. Here we're back to my same critique from Dragon Magazine, which almost is a sort of a critique against WotC itself, well, and TSR and all the other people who've worked on D&D, who are awesome people. But it is such a long-standing, immutable mess of D&D. Really nothing mechanically about it is very interesting. I would say rolling advantage is the biggest innovation in D&D since we went out of the THACO days. Everything else is basically just beating numbers on 20s, rolling damage, you know, like it's extremely, yeah, I know. You know, that's the response you get. Is it bad? No, these mechanics are fantastic. We all use them to great effect in our tables, but it's all very, yeah, I know, is how you feel. And so if you're mining books for exciting new monster mechanics and stuff, you're probably not going to find them here. They're basically lots of like arbitrary saves. Like this guy has a DC 13 save. This guy has a DC 11 save. This guy can, you know, blow up. One's in here. I love the red caps. The red cap is a mechanically designed monster. It's practically worth buying the book just to get the red caps in your game and do it right. Hopefully they'll put a PDF of this out so you can get it for cheaper than, this is way overpriced. It's like 40, 50 bucks. But you know, you gotta have your D&D set up on the shelf and it looks cool. They've done great with the spine design, so all the spines go together. Despite any weaknesses they may have mechanically, D&D is the absolute world leader on monsters. I have a lot of other monster books and they all get very bland and they feel very derivative of D&D. That, to me, is indicative of them being the leaders in monster design. So if you want new monsters, hell yeah. Overall, best thing, monster creation. WotC kills it, and just their overall book quality, people cannot mess with the scale and the force of industrial power they bring to this. So thank you for that, WotC. Worst thing, pretty mechanically boring. I know a lot of people doing homebrew who are doing more interesting things in their game here because these guys are bound to canonical 5th edition and you just don't get a lot of fascinating mechanics out of it. Next up we have a much talked about indie RPG. I don't know where this was created. I think this is a Norwegian or this is definitely European in some way. This is Symbaroum. Symbaroum, this is the core rulebook. This is pretty much all you would need to get it to your table. Cool book, very expensive feeling, and you definitely pay for it. But a cool book to have on your shelf overall. Good for the imagination. Art-wise, fantastic, not because of quality per se, but because of style. So some of their quality is touch and go because he uses this sort of blurry, messy technique. But on the other hand, the style of this artist is undeniable. He has a style, or they have a style, and they nailed it and stuck to it and stayed consistent and really brought the pain down. Now, unfortunately, that style is a little bit vague on detail, so it does leave you kind of in spots like wondering. It's not a fully realized, fully detailed style. So you are kind of like, what is that? What am I looking at? Why does everybody just have a stick? What's going on? So you don't get that satisfaction sometimes of seeing a really specific piece of art for something you're trying to imagine. But damn, the stylistical components of this game are so different and interesting and exciting. They're fantastic. Bookcraft in here is great, except one problem. Like all their bulleting and sidebars, they have a really cool chart, which is like a summary of their battle system, their combat mechanics, which is very easy to read. really easy to learn and like just, oh yeah, hey, okay, that's interesting. Really great book craft, brilliantly made, great color design, awesome. There's one problem. They forgot about the grand rule of brevity. The book is overwritten. There's so much writing and it's so dense. You get lost and you don't get what the key issues are. They also put their world building before their sort of how to play, and you find yourself not caring, even though it's really huge and epic and oh my god, and there's like a billion years of history, and it's just overdone. So you guys did great, but you have to edit with a brutal hand. They could have had 1/3 of the writing in this book and filled the rest of the space with dead space to make it easier to understand, and I think it would have been a better book. If you're into that kind of stuff, man, is this your book. The opening section, which outlines the world, which is a very detailed, small world with like one giant forest and these kingdoms. Brilliant, but just overload. Okay, mechanics. The mechanics in the book are well documented and well designed and elegant, but I don't like them at all. I'm sorry, Symbaroum guys. First of all, they just have two things that I think are just... First, its rolling low is good. They have derivative number creation, which I also, it drives me nuts. So it's like 10 is a 0 modifier, right? And 15 is like a -5, and 5 is a +5. You know, like there's a derivative chart, which I also basically hate about D20 as well, which is trying to remember the bonus equivalent of your stats. It is the worst. I hate derivative math. It's impossible to remember. After decades of play, you still can't quite remember sometimes. I hate derivative math, period. It's a derivative math, which a lot of people will learn in the first 10 minutes and remember forever, and good on you. You will love Symbaroum. But otherwise, it's really elegant. They have an elegant, like, stat is modified by, roll it, bang, rockin' on. Really cool. Okay, so anyways, not my thing, but really well made. So best thing about the book, tone. Like if you're looking for a tone for your fantasy campaign, this tone is baller. There's tons of detail and it's amazing. Also, the spell list in this book is better than the spell list in the D&D PHB. It is just plain better. It's more creative, it's shorter, it's tighter, it has more flavor to it, it's tightly written, simple mechanics. There's too many damn spells in D&D. This has less and they're cooler. So Symbaroum guys, brilliantly done with your spell list. Absolutely love it. It's one of those spell lists that you read through that just makes you want to get to the table and play. So it is worth the money right there just for that effect. Get this book. Worst thing about the book, probably counterintuitive mechanics and overwriting, like I said. It's nothing near counterintuitive level of something like Mouse Guard or Burning Will. Like those are so counterintuitive you can't even begin to comprehend it. At least I can't, someone of my intellect. So it's much more intuitive than that. It's much more D20 style, but you know, they did things like renaming the 6 stats to something else, like Vigilant and Quick and stuff like that. I can't deal with that. I'm so many years have I spent saying Strength, Dex, Con, Int, Wiz, Cha. I can't. So if you're ready to open your mind a little bit and try and do this, I would love to see someone actually playing out a full Symbaroum campaign, because I bet it would be awesome. Okay, enough about Symbaroum. Definitely buy this book. It's like playing Moon Patrol. Next up, this is going to be controversial, and I'm sorry, I'm going to apologize in advance. We have Fate Core. Yeah, I've definitely got some recommendations. Go check out Fate Core. I looked at their SRD online, and it was absolutely brilliant how clear it was laid out, and I became very intrigued. I also, just because I'm a dice collector, I have some Fate dice laying around that I've always thought are kind of fun and neat and different, and they are. Okay, so let's just break it down. The art in this book is very weird. It's actually the thing that kept me from buying the book all this time, is that there's this weird gorilla on the cover. And I don't like cybernetic gorillas. I also do not like genre mashup, like in GURPS. I just don't like it. I don't like seeing a ninja with a spy and a cybernetic gorilla together. I just can't. To me, it just feels wrong. Okay, the art, as far as its style and quality, is pretty good. It's all black and white. It seems to be by a few artists, or maybe even one artist. Maybe, I don't know, 3 artists or so. But it's all very kind of, again, I would call it literal. It's, you know, like, here's a cowboy on a thing with an obelisk, and it's just very, there it is. Yep, that's definitely how you're supposed to draw. You know, that's a person. That's a relatively real looking person. So I don't know where to go with it. It's just leaves me a little flat, but overall, you know, it's well executed. As far as book craft goes, these guys are geniuses. The way that they walk you through their concepts and organize their information is freaking brilliant. So many RPG books could learn tremendous lessons from Evil Hat and how they built this book and how they build out the way you understand, not what you understand, but the way you understand. Every page catches your eye to go read some other little tidbit or learn a little thing, and you just find yourself bouncing through, Pac-Manning through the book, just in a fun, intuitive way. It's brilliant. And they did that with black and white, no color, which is very impressive. Mechanically, we get to Fate, and this is where it gets a little controversial. So mechanically, Fate uses a concept called aspects, which are details about your character that can be invoked to get advantage in certain situations, or can be done what's called compelled, which can be used as a disadvantage against you, which will give you a fate point. And then a fate point is a spendable thing to invoke an aspect. And the aspects are very free, and you can kind of be part of the story, and it's all very narrative, and it's all over the place. There's not a lot of, you know, numeric width and verticality. It's, you know, just rolling these kind of 4 dice and, you know, trying to get +2 and so forth. It's a very boiled down, very narrative game. So that's all fine and good, except I think you would really need a deeply cooperative group who really is willing to overlook the fact that you could kind of BS your way through the mechanics on this. If you had even one munchkin, or one sort of vengeful character, or maybe one guy who got jilted last session and he really wants to get his comeuppance, this system is so easy, it feels like to me, to take advantage of and to exploit and to warp. And so its beauty is that it's poetic and narrative, of open and very conducive to imagination. And its weakness is that there's not a lot of numeric guts in it. The most narrative of the narrative games, I would say. It's more narrative based than Dungeon World. You like Fate dice, those are kind of neat. But you know, it doesn't matter. It's still a book worth having because of how much you can learn about how they built their book. It's freaking awesome. So ups to you on that, Evil Hat. It's probably just a matter of taste on the narrative mechanics, so, you know, don't take it personal. So best thing in the book, how they crafted the conceptual unfolding. Worst thing in the book, mechanics. The next is this little book. This is a little underdog from out of nowhere. What's this little book? This isn't an RPG. Why is this even in the reading review, the book review? What are you even showing me right here, Hanker Inferno? This book is called A Coast to Coast Walk by A. Wainwright. A Coast to Coast Walk by A. Wainwright. Look it up. It's a tiny little book. The entire thing is written by hand, and it is a detailed account or journal of every detail as you walk from one side of England to the other. Probably start to imagine, especially if you get your hands on this book, you can start to imagine how applicable this really is to your game creating skills as a dungeon master. Concepts of architecture, there's great concepts of map making, there's great narrative detail in what it would be like to be walking through a medieval world, which is something that's often forgotten in our game creating. We often bypass a lot of this. And you don't have to jam all this into your game, but there's something really special here that if you get the book and give it a try, I think you will agree with me. This is really worth having on your shelf. So as far as art goes, absolutely untouchable. This is a classically trained master here. This stuff is amazing. As far as book craft goes, the entire thing is done by hand. And it's shocking how fun it is to read through this. So again, top marks. Mechanics, there are none. So worst thing about the book probably is it takes a very inventive mind to see how you can get this into your game. Nothing about this has anything to do with games. So it's totally going to be up to you to see if this is worthwhile, but this is an awesome little book. This is one of the books to end all books. This is a monstrosity. This is a massive book. This is 700 pages almost. A big format, dense pages like these. It's like a King James Bible. This thing is ridiculously enormous, and it's incredible. It has literally hundreds of maps and encounters. It is incredible, and it's all one gigantic dungeon with one story and one past that all hooks together quite tightly. It's made by Frog God. You know, these guys are the old school of the old school, and it shows. They got the skills. Okay, so let's break it down. On the art front, it's a bit sparse. Map-wise, you've got tons of maps, but you kind of, you're a little bit stuck with sort of the OSR style art, which, you know, is really cool, actually. It kind of ignites the imagination in a way. And there's probably actually a lot, but every once in a while you get these swaths of pages where there are none, you know, these kind of pages, and those make me a little bit sad. And there's no color, but the maps make it so worth it. It's hard to even notice if there's art or not, because there's so many maps and they're so interesting, and you always need maps as a dungeon master. As far as bookcraft goes, it's all right. It's all very, very black and white. It's all very Pathfinder-y feeling, which this is the Pathfinder edition of Rappan Athuk. But I get the feeling that this is how they do stat blocks. To me, this is terrible bookcraft right here. This is just a bunch of text with slightly bigger text punctuating it. It just, there's no sidebar, there's no bulleting, there's no bubbling. It just beats you with brutal, incredible amount of content. As far as mechanics go, ooh, welcome to Happy Land. Of everything I just discussed, this is where the mechanics live. There are so many rooms and so many maps and so many ways monsters interact with space and the way that you interact with traps, and I would be amazed if someone could even absorb the amount of brilliant mechanics in here. The mechanics are freaking unbelievable and tasty. You could just open to a page, look into it, and start seeing new mechanics. And mechanics aren't necessarily numeric, they're thematic. And this is something that, for some reason, Volo just doesn't give you. It doesn't give you the specifics of how a set of creatures and a set of spaces create a certain pinch or challenge to the players. It kind of keeps everything vague. And this doesn't do that. There's no vague here. This is all super specific about walking around a corner and getting hit with a trap, and then there's 10 more feet, and then there's a face carved in the wall, and that's important because the salamanders who live down in the lava are going to kill the thing, and then they're supping on the blood of the creature from the other wing of the dungeon, and like, holy crap! Cosmological type machine that this dungeon is. It is a staggering revelation. It's like... there are no words. It's absolutely fantastic. I would call this a must-have of all dungeon masters. That's how, and you don't have to get the Pathfinder edition. I think there are other editions of this book. It's just, you know me, I don't really care about what stats they say as long as they're, you know, somewhat skimmable. Then they give me an idea, but my stats are driven more on what my table is gonna enjoy, between stats and mechanics and content, and this has mechanics and content coming out its Frog God ears. Dear Lord, I am enraptured with, I am enrapathooked with this book. This book will take over your mind and spit it out. So buy this book, be a badass. Ooh, wow. That got fun right at the end. Alright guys, that's enough. You have heard enough of my crap for this little video, so I hope that either helps you spend your ducats or helps you avoid spending your ducats. Everybody's got a great game, so don't take my opinion to be some kind of hoopty-doopty. Everybody just has a game that will fit their table. Whether it's Fate, Dungeon World, or Pathfinder, D&D, like there is no best, there is no good, there is no horrible. There's just what fits you and what fits your taste and what gets the juices turning, what makes you want to get back to the table. Because that is what drives our hobby. It's not like, well, it's Monday, I guess we'll play D&D. No, you need that thing that makes it fun. That makes it more fun than all the other fun things that you can do with your time, which there are tons of them. So I love a book that will get my juices flowing again, where I'm just like, ooh, you know what I could do? I could blah, 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 blah. And, oh God, man, I gotta text my homie and be like, dude, you guys gotta come over this weekend, because I'm gonna skewer you on pikes. And it's gonna be fun, because we're cool like that. Tuning in, guys. See you next time on Dungeons and Dragons. Strength, honor, and books.